Hey friends, tonight we're not digging through dusty tablets or arguing about cuneiform grammar. Tonight, we're walking barefoot across warm, cracked earth. We're chasing shadows through groves of date palms, and we're sitting beneath a tree that might just whisper your next dream if you're quiet enough to listen. Because tonight, we're going to ancient Mesopotamia. Yes, the cradle of civilization, and we're following a story that most historians skipped over in favor of wars, kings, and irrigation systems. We're here to learn why some ancient Iraqis believed that dreams grew on trees. And let's be honest, you probably wouldn't make it through a single night in Sumer. Between the floods, the heat, and the endless celestial spreadsheets of the priesthood, you'd be curled up in a reed mat crying about Wi-Fi by sundown. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you actually enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments, where are you listening from, and what time is it right now? Now turn off your lights, let the fan whisper in the background, and let's begin tonight's journey together. You wake up in the city of Nippur sometime around 2000 BCE. It's just before dawn. The air is thick with river mist and leftover incense from last night's temple rites. You shuffle out from under your woven blanket, yawn like a slightly dehydrated goat, and rub the corner of your eye that still remembers the tail end of a dream about frogs, possibly flying frogs. Hard to tell. You sit up. The mud brick walls around you are warm from the night before. Outside, someone's already grinding barley. Somewhere, a baby is trying to outsing a rooster. And above you, a tree, planted smack in the center of your family courtyard, wide-branched, heavy-leaved. Its fruit hangs low, golden and slow-moving in the breeze. You stare at it for a second, then whisper, "What did you show me this time?" Because here's the thing, they say your dreams come from that tree. You've never quite believed it, but your grandmother did, and her grandmother, and the old priest near the canal with the milky eyes and the obsession with turtles definitely believed it. She called it the Etz Ilu, Tree of Insight, not the Tree of Life. That one's 2 blocks down and has a much worse attitude. This one's quieter, more personal. You lean against its trunk and remember what the elders say. If you sleep beneath this tree, the dreams you receive are not random. They are gifts, seeds of the divine. Some people dream of answers, others of futures. One guy dreamed of barley until he became a brewer. Coincidence? Maybe. But he made good beer. Here's your first solid historical truth. In ancient Mesopotamia, dreams were considered messages from the gods, especially if they came while sleeping in or near sacred spaces. Certain trees, particularly those planted near temples or household shrines, were believed to carry divine breath. People would sleep under them intentionally, hoping for a dream that solved a dispute, predicted a birth, or revealed which goat was going to break the fence again. You stand and stretch. The tree rustles. You swear, it sighs at you. Not impatiently, just amused. You head toward the canal. Today's your temple apprenticeship day. Because yes, you're training to become a dream interpreter. Not one of those dusty astrologers up in the ziggurat tower. You're part of the practical team, the people who actually talk to farmers, scribes, and slightly guilty husbands about why they dreamed of 3 snakes and a broken bowl. You walk slowly, past walls etched with stories, past women hanging laundry and boys playing knucklebones with the seriousness of priests. You arrive at the shrine. Your mentor, Naram, is already there, face deep in a scroll, sandals off, sipping something that smells like fermented dates and mild disappointment. "You're late," he mutters. "I was listening to the tree." You know it doesn't talk unless you're half asleep. I was half asleep. Then it said nothing useful. This is your life now, learning how to read dreams, how to spot omens, how to gently tell a man that dreaming of falling teeth doesn't mean his uncle is dying. It means he's stressed and should probably stop yelling at his sheep. And this is where your journey begins, not as a warrior, not as a ruler, but as someone who listens, not to power, but to leaves, to symbols, to the language between sleep and sun. Because maybe, just maybe, there's a reason the dreams come through the roots first, and you're about to find out why. Your first task today is simple. Sweep the steps of the dream shrine and don't step on the offering bowls. You fail immediately. The second you round the corner, your sandal nudges a tiny clay dish full of sesame seeds. It flips, lands upside down. The pigeons flee like you just cursed their lineage. Naram sighs without looking up. That was for Ninlil. Now she's going to give someone a dream about leaky ceilings. You apologize again and sweep carefully. The temple is a quiet place, not silent. There's always the murmur of prayers, the creak of reed mats, the occasional thwack of a scribe slapping a lazy apprentice with a stylus. But the dream hall itself feels suspended, like time holds its breath inside. The walls are covered in carved symbols, not just stars and animals. Those are beginner dreams. You see layers, wings folded into fish, mountains hiding serpents, a broken chariot being swallowed by vines. You don't ask what they mean, not yet. Instead, you help prepare the dream beds. Yes, beds. People come here to nap on purpose, not for laziness, for revelation. And they don't just lie down and hope for the best. There's ritual, soft incense, cold clay under the pillow, a prayer whispered to the god of dreams, often improvised and a little awkward. Great one who arranges the mind like pots on a shelf, please show me why my neighbor's goat keeps staring at me. You don't laugh, because last week someone dreamed of a goat, and then the goat did escape, knocked over 3 pots, and ate an entire shipment of temple figs. Coincidence? That's not your job to say. Your job is to notice. Here's your second historical fact. In ancient Mesopotamia, dream interpretation was a formal role within the temple system. Dream manuals existed, some over 100 clay tablets long, cataloging common symbols and outcomes. But experienced interpreters knew better than to rely only on rules. They listened to tone, timing, even the dreamer's voice. Dreams were maps, but only if you understood how to read the dirt. Naram motions you over. He holds a clay tablet with fresh writing. A merchant came in this morning, dreamed of a tree that bled sap shaped like his wife's face. You blink. Interpretation He's feeling guilty. About what? Doesn't matter. He already knows. You nod and write that down, not the dream, the truth beneath it. Because that's your third task. Record what's real, not just what's said. A truth most people forget about dreams. They don't hide things, they underline them. You finish your duties by mid-afternoon, and as the sun tilts lower over Nipper, you head back toward your family's courtyard, weaving through the golden light like a thought on the edge of sleep. The dream tree sways as you arrive, not dramatically, just like it missed you. You sit beneath it, lean back, close your eyes, and just before sleep takes you, it hums. No wind, no birds, just a single note, low, warm, from the trunk itself. And then you dream, a staircase made of vines, a face in the stars, a clay bowl filled with tears that water a seed in your palm. You wake to dusk, the tree is still, but something inside you is not. The next morning, you don't wake with the rest of the city. You drift up slowly, like a cloud being released from the dream world one thread at a time. The dream tree's shadow reaches across your bed, long, gentle, pointing. That's not at anything in particular, just forward. You rise, dress, and head to the temple without eating. Your stomach complains, but your hands are already wrapped around your notes from yesterday, the ones you barely remember writing. One says, the bowl is not crying. You are. Cryptic, melodramatic, probably useful. Naram greets you with a grunt. He's been up for hours, drinking something bitter that smells like disappointment and old dates. We've been summoned, he says. By who? By the High Priest of Dreams. You blink. That's a level you usually only hear about when someone's been struck by divine lightning or dreamt of a ziggurat melting into a lion. You follow him through winding temple corridors, passing shelves of dream tablets, jars of sacred ash, and a very sleepy dog who you suspect may secretly be a minor deity. The priest is waiting in a chamber filled with white reeds and small statues of gods whose names you've never dared pronounce. He looks up. His eyes are pale, not blind, just ancient. You slept under the Etz Ilu again, he says. You nod. And you dreamed. Yes. Tell me. So you do. The staircase, the seed, the tears in the bowl. He listens, unmoving. When you finish, he stands, walks to a shelf, pulls down a scroll older than your entire family lineage. He unrolls it, points. You recognize it instantly. A drawing, a symbol, a tree, a bowl, a seed in a palm. This, he says, has only appeared 3 times in recorded memory. What does it mean? He closes the scroll. No one knows, but the last person to dream it vanished into the mountains and returned with the names of 6 new stars. Okay, so, casual prophecy, cool. You leave the temple with your heart pounding and your head full of wind. Outside, Naram claps you on the back. Well, at least your goat dreams are behind you. You laugh, nervously. But later that night, under the tree again, you can't stop thinking about the bowl, the seed. You start to wonder if the dream tree is choosing you or testing you. You don't know which is worse. Here's your third historical touchstone. Ancient Sumerians and Akkadians kept not just dream books, but dream warnings. Certain dreams were believed to come not from the gods, but from deeper forces, old ones, rooted forces, dreams that looked like riddles, but behaved like traps. Some scribes left notes on tablets that simply read, "Burn after telling." You lean against the tree. You whisper, "Why me?" And the leaves shake. But the wind is dead still. That night, you can't sleep. Not properly. You lie under the tree, eyes closed, heart calm. But your thoughts keep curling like incense smoke. Not anxious, just expectant. The kind of stillness that feels pregnant with symbols. You hear footsteps, bare, measured. It's your grandmother. She doesn't speak. She hasn't in years, not since the last flood took her voice and half the courtyard. But she walks to the tree, places her hands on its trunk, and hums a low, broken note. You didn't know she still remembered the melody, or maybe the tree taught it back to her. She turns, gestures to you, points upwards. You look, and there, nestled between branches, like it's always been there, a clay bowl, suspended on a wooden hook, slightly cracked, glowing faintly in the moonlight. You don't know how it got there. You don't ask. You climb, not gracefully, not quietly. You reach it, touch it. It's warm. Inside, water, clear, still, deeper than the bowl itself should allow. You stare into it and see dash, not your reflection, but stars, moving, forming symbols, then a single seed, floating in the water, then dropping, and you wake up, still under the tree, still in the courtyard. But something has changed. Your fingers are wet, and beside you in the grass, resting gently on the roots, like it grew there from breath itself, a single, pale seed. You pick it up. It hums, faintly. You don't tell anyone in the morning. You just carry it with you, in a pouch, close, near your ribs. The temple is noisy. The priests are debating the meaning of a king's dream that featured an eagle, a plow, and a strangely aggressive fig. But you're quiet, because you know something they don't. The tree gave you something, not an answer, a task. Here's your last truth to close Act 1. While many Mesopotamian records document dreams sent by gods, there are rarer stories, scribbled in temple margins or woven into myths, about dreams that arrive uninvited, dreams that don't explain but ask. Some were dismissed, others were said to be dangerous, and a very few were planted. As you leave the temple that afternoon, you walk past another sapling near the canal. Young, reedy, reaching, you pause, you touch the seed in your pouch, and wonder, what happens if you plant a dream where no one believes in it? And what if it still grows? You don't plant the seed right away, not because you're afraid, because you're listening. Every morning, you walk the edge of the canal where the papyrus grows thick and the mud smells older than language. The fish blink at you like they've read your dreams and are unimpressed. Children splash in the shallows, chasing turtles and laughing like they've never feared the gods. And in your palm, tucked in cloth, the seed hums, not constantly, just sometimes, like it's breathing in its sleep. Naram notices your silence. He calls it mystic laziness. You say nothing. You still scrub the temple floors, still copy the dream tablets, still record villagers' nightmares about broken ladders, whispering oxen, and jars filled with snakes that all had your cousin's face. You smile when you're supposed to, but your mind is under the tree, always. Then one evening, long after the temple has quieted, and even the gods seem to have taken a nap, you slip out. You carry the seed to the edge of the city, not the shrines, not the sacred groves, just a patch of neglected earth behind the old stables, a place no one blesses, no one prays to, just cracked soil and weeds that pretend they're brave. You kneel and you ask, not out loud, just in thought, is this the right place? The wind shifts. A dog barks once in the distance, and the seed hums. Once, software clear, you dig, press the seed into the ground, cover it, and walk away. You don't expect anything. You don't sleep. But when you return the next morning, a sprout, green, small, impossible. You drop to your knees, touch the edge of its first leaf. It's warm. You laugh, too loud. A passing baker gives you a look usually reserved for mad prophets and very dramatic poets. You don't care. You go back to the temple with mud on your knees and a secret in your chest. Here's your first real historical roots for Act 2. Certain Babylonian texts describe unofficial altars, places outside the temple complex where individuals performed private rites. Some were frowned upon, some were ignored, but a few were recorded as producing signs, particularly when associated with dreams that repeated, unprovoked, or refused translation. One line from a scratched clay fragment reads, "The boy who planted his sleep found it blooming in silence." You don't tell Naram, you don't tell your family, but you visit the sprout every day. It grows fast, unnaturally fast. By the 5th day, it has a second set of leaves. By the 7th, it hums without being touched. By the 9th, it dreams. Not you, it. You place your hand on the stem and see things that aren't yours. A temple that doesn't exist. Stars that pulse like bells. A woman standing in water, holding a bowl that cries. You pull your hand back, shaking. The plant quiets. You stare and whisper, "What are you?" It says nothing, but you already know. It's not just a tree, it's a messenger. You try to stay away. You tell yourself it's just a plant. A strange plant, yes, but a sprout in dirt all the same. You go to the temple, you sweep, you copy the dreams of strangers. You nod while Naram complains that someone dreamed a crocodile was their uncle and now refuses to fish. But at night, you return every time. The dream tree in waiting is taller now, knee-high, stem thickened like it's preparing for something. Its leaves shimmer slightly in moonlight, not like metal, like memory. You touch it again, just once. The vision comes faster, not a dream, an echo. You stand in a chamber you've never seen. Pillars made of stacked tablets, a roofless dome under swirling stars that pulse with a rhythm you don't recognize until you realize it's your breath. Then you see her again, the woman in water. She raises the bowl. This time she speaks. But the words are not words. They're shapes. You wake, back beside the sprout. But something follows you. All day as you translate dreams for the temple, broken teeth, flying fish, horses made of mist, you begin to notice a pattern. The dreams are bending, shifting. People dream of trees now, roots, a bowl they can't drink from, a seed they can't find. You don't tell Naram, but one afternoon he squints at you and mutters, "There's something in the air." You nod, pretending not to know exactly what. Here's your historical insight. Mesopotamian scribes were obsessed with patterns. When dream symbols repeated across multiple individuals, especially if unrelated, they were flagged. Some believed these were divine warnings. Others believed they were drifts from the gods' sleep, their dreams brushing against human thought. A rare few suggested that dreams themselves might migrate. You think, what if they're migrating into me? That night, the sprout is waist high. Its stem darkens. Its leaves shift slightly when you breathe near them. And then, you dream without sleeping. You're awake, but the world fades. And in your hand, a bowl, the same one. You look up. You're no longer in the courtyard. You're standing on the ziggurat roof, alone, wind tearing at your robes. The bowl glows in your hand, and you know you're supposed to pour it. But there's no altar, only soil, cracked, thirsty. You kneel, tip the bowl. A single drop falls, sinks into the ground, and a tree erupts. Instant, towering, impossible. Its leaves whisper not in words, but in names. You jolt awake, back by the sprout. You look at your hands, empty, but the air tastes like clay and thunder. And the sprout, it's grown again. Here's your uncanny historical detail. A Babylonian omen tablet lists the phrase, "When the dream gives you something to plant, beware the morning." No explanation, no follow-up. Scholars still debate what it means. Some call it symbolic. Others believe it warns of dreams becoming interactive. You sit beside the sprout. It leans toward you. You whisper, "What do you want?" And for the first time, you hear it answer, not in sound, not in language, just feeling. A presence inside your chest that simply says, "More." The dream spread. It starts with a potter's apprentice. She arrives at the temple half asleep, eyes still glassy, mumbling about a tree that offered her a cup full of stars. When she drank it, her hands burned and then shaped clay that sang. Naram shrugs. She's probably dehydrated. You, however, are not so sure. Then the baker's son dreams of a staircase built from leaves. Each step he climbs makes him forget something: his name, his home, even the face of his mother. When he reaches the top, he looks down and sees a sprout growing out of his chest. And the dreams keep coming. A shepherd sees his flock speaking to him in tree branches. A fisherman dreams of roots wrapping around his ankles, pulling him gently into the river, where he breathes like he's never known fear. Each dream, a thread, each thread pulling towards something. You walk through the city like a lantern wrapped in fog. People pass, whispering, some with reverence, some with worry. A few just stare at you like you've become part of someone else's bedtime story. You visit the sprout. You can't call it that anymore. It's a tree, barely taller than you, but unmistakable now. Its bark patterned like ancient script. Its branches curved like question marks, too elegant to answer. And at the end of one branch, a fruit, translucent, pale gold. You reach for it, hesitate, then stop. Because behind you, someone clears their throat. It's the high priest of dreams. He's barefoot, holding no staff, eyes soft. It's growing fast, he says. You nod. I didn't mean to. It meant to. You glance at him. You knew this would happen. He exhales through his nose. The Etz Elu is not a tree. It's a cycle. Every few lifetimes, it chooses a new dreamer, someone not seeking answers, but asking the right questions. So, what happens now? Now, he says, you learn how to let it grow without owning it. Here's your scholarly hook. Some Mesopotamian texts describe sacred trees, not as divine gifts, but as tests. Those who tried to control them, harvest their fruits, contain their dreams, or cut them for prophecy, often went mad. One broken tablet fragment includes the line, "He drank the dream and became the drought." You shudder, because the fruit glows a little brighter in the corner of your vision. The priest places a small pouch in your hand. Seeds. Take these, he says. You won't stay here forever. Dreams travel. Where should I plant them? Where the silence listens. You don't fully understand, but you nod, because part of you does. Later that night, you sleep without touching the tree. You dream anyway, but this time, it's not you dreaming. It's the tree, and it dreams of rivers turned upside down, of stars beneath soil, of a city made of vines and whispering bowls. You wake with leaves in your hair. You don't know how they got there, but you don't brush them away. The tree bears 3 fruits now, each one different. One is pale like the moon on water. One is dark and shimmering like obsidian dust. And one glows, not bright, not warm, but familiar. People begin to come, not dreamers, pilgrims, quiet women from the river villages, scribes from other temples who pretend they're just passing through, a soldier who lays down his spear before stepping close. No one speaks near the tree. They just stand, listen. Sometimes they cry, not from sorrow, from relief. But not everyone is at peace. One morning, you return to find a group of temple scribes whispering around it, measuring it, touching the bark like it owes them explanation. You hear one mutter, "It should be recorded, sectioned, studied." Another says, "It should be moved to the ziggurat gardens. There are protocols." You step forward. "It grew here. It wasn't summoned." They glance at you. One sneers, "Dreams don't choose where they grow. They belong to the gods." You shake your head. Maybe that's what you were told, but this dream grew from silence. They leave eventually, not convinced, but uncomfortable. That night, the tree wilts slightly. Not sick, just tired. You kneel beside it, place your hand on the soil, and for the first time you pray, not to a god, to the dream itself. "Stay only if you want. I won't use you. I'll carry you if I have to." The wind doesn't answer, but the tree straightens. A leaf falls. You catch it. It hums in your palm, and you know what you have to do. You visit Naram. He looks older than you remember. He's been avoiding you, gently, like someone avoiding a mirror that shows too much. "I'm leaving," you tell him. He sighs. "I figured. Your hands don't look like apprentice hands anymore. I'm taking the seeds." "To where?" "Wherever they want." He nods, then hands you something. A tiny flat tablet. No writing, just an impression of a leaf. So you don't forget where you started. You leave that night. No ceremony, just your pouch, your sandals, and the tree watching. You don't say goodbye. You whisper, "Thank you," and step into the dark. Here's your final historical thread before the next chapter. Some tablets reference the carrier, a nameless figure who leaves the city with fragments of a forgotten dream, carrying it across rivers, mountains, deserts. No one agrees on who it was, or whether they succeeded, only that the dream never returned to the temple. It kept walking. You walk, past walls, past canals, past the last torchlight of Nippur. The stars are brighter than usual, and in your pouch, the seeds begin to warm, not like fire, like possibility. The road doesn't begin with direction, it begins with listening. You walk for days, maybe weeks. The sky shifts from brass to velvet and back again. You sleep beside riverbanks, under thorn trees, inside old shepherd huts that smell like stories left too long in the sun. Each night, the seeds in your pouch pulse faintly, never the same rhythm, as if each one is dreaming on its own. You wait for the sign, not a star, not a vision, just a silence that feels ready. And one morning, you find it. A hill above a forgotten village, crooked, dusty, but still. A stillness that doesn't demand, it invites. You kneel, place your hand on the ground. The soil breathes. You dig. One seed, just one. The others stay quiet. You cover it with care and whisper, "Dream kindly." The villagers notice you by the second day. Children first. They circle you like curious wind. One of them points at your pouch and asks, "Is that where the dreams live?" You say, "Number, that's just where they wait." A week later, the sprout emerges. And this time, you aren't alone. A weaver brings offerings, thread and silence. A widow sits nearby, eyes closed, whispering names no one has said in years. The dream tree doesn't bloom overnight, but the people do. They start remembering their dreams again. One says she dreamed of water that didn't flood, only held her like it forgave her. Another saw a clay bowl that never emptied, not with food, with peace. You don't interpret anymore. You don't need to. You just remind them. Not all dreams ask to be understood. Some just want to rest. Here's your grounded truth. In rural parts of ancient Mesopotamia, there are carvings and oral echoes of dream keepers, figures who wandered, stayed a while, planted, then moved on. Not prophets, not priests, just tenders. Some clay seals show a man or woman beside a tree flanked by sleeping animals and stars. No inscriptions, just stillness. One night, the sprout hums. You know it's time. You pack the next seed, walk again, to the coast, to the highlands, to the shadow of forgotten ziggurats, where only wind remembers the gods' names. Each place, a dream. Each dream, a tree. Each tree, a whisper that spreads without shouting. They call you many things now. The dream sower, the sleep bringer, the one who plants questions. You carry no staff, no scroll, just seeds and a memory of the first bowl you never drank from. The city of Uruk is not asleep. Not really. It breathes with the sharp rhythm of commerce and rule, market stalls creaking at dawn, scribes shouting inventory, priests measuring shadows like they own the sun. Dreams here are managed, cataloged, interpreted only by temple decree. You arrive at dusk, dust clinging to your sandals, and stars beginning to whisper. You plant nothing at first. You watch. A merchant sells dream scrolls near the ziggurat steps. Guaranteed prophecies, he says. Only 3 shekels. Pay extra for a good omen. A girl is dragged by her mother to the temple because she dreamt of birds nesting in her teeth. They call it spiritual decay. They give her chalk water and a blessing she doesn't understand. No one asks what the birds were building. That night, you climb the city wall. High above the rituals, the records, the righteous noise. You hold one seed in your hand. It's trembling, not with fear, with true urgency. You find a small courtyard behind an abandoned storage house. Cracked pots, a broken idol, soil ignored for years. Perfect. You plant. Quick, quiet, and whisper nothing. Because some places don't need a name. They need permission. By morning, a sprout. By noon, rumors. By nightfall, confrontation. 3 temple interpreters arrive. Tall, robed, unsmiling. One says, unauthorized sacred growth. Another says, this dream was not scheduled. The third steps forward. We'll take it, move it to the archives. You stand between them and the sprout. It chose this place. They laugh. One steps closer, reaches for the stem. The moment his fingers graze it, he stops, freezes, eyes go wide, and then quietly, I see a bowl and it's emptying into my chest. He falls back, sits sobbing. The others stare, not angry now, not even afraid, just quiet. You kneel beside him, whisper. It's not prophecy, it's remembering. Here's your final deep cut from the archives. One text, recovered in pieces, speaks of a tree that could not be archived. Attempts to remove it caused fainting, vision even, so the record says, singing rocks. Eventually, the priest declared it an external ritual anomaly and stopped speaking of it altogether. But the people didn't. They came in secret, sat near it, brought their unsanctioned dreams. Your tree in Uruk stays. You do not, because the next seed in your pouch begins to hum. And somewhere out there, a village has forgotten how to imagine. And somewhere else, a child is dreaming of a staircase that ends in water. You walk, because that's what you do now. You don't explain, you plant. The road is softer now, not because the stones are gentler, because you are. You walk not like someone carrying a secret, but like someone who has become part of it. There are dream trees growing now in places no tablet will ever mention. One by a shepherd's hut, where a boy once asked if goats dream. One on the edge of a river, where the water sings before it speaks. One in a village, where no one could remember their ancestors, until a girl slept beside a sapling and woke naming names that hadn't been spoken in generations. You don't need to stay in these places. The trees stay. The dreams root. You reach your final stop at the edge of the desert. Nothing grows here, not because it can't, because no one has asked it to in a long time. You find a small rise of cracked earth, a place where wind sounds like forgetting. You kneel, take out the final seed. It doesn't glow, it doesn't hum, it just waits. You press it into the dust, and for the first time, you don't whisper anything. You just listen. The wind slows, the ground warms, and under your palm, a heartbeat. You sit beside it until the stars arrive, and for the first time, you don't dream, because the dream is around you now. Here's your last piece of buried truth. In the deep south of Mesopotamia, archaeologists once found a circle of stones arranged not as a shrine, but as a sleeping ring. At its center, pollen from a plant that didn't match the region. No tablets, no carvings, just traces. As if something passed through, quietly, gently, and left behind a root that still remembers the dream. You lie down in the sand. The wind folds over you like a blanket. And somewhere far away, under the first dream tree you ever planted, a blossom opens. Just once, just enough, and sleeps. Now that the final dream has been planted, let's rest too. There's no temple to guard now, no scroll to decipher, no bowl to fill. Only stillness, only this. Let your shoulders fall slowly. Let your breath find the pace of soft wind over old roots. You are not carrying seeds tonight. You are becoming soil, warm, willing, listening. Let the last thoughts of your day curl like vines, loose and unhurried. They do not need to bloom. They only need to rest. Every part of you, your eyes, your back, your thoughts, settles gently, like dust in a sunbeam. No need to dream of stars tonight. You've already planted them. So let the hush come. Let the ground hold you. Let the sleep you've sown return. Hey everyone, tonight we're slipping quietly into the silk-clad corridors of the Forbidden City just before midnight in the year 1794. The torches flicker dimly along the vermilion walls. The air smells faintly of sandalwood and soot, and you, of course, are trying not to trip over your own embroidered slippers as you shuffle past a sleeping tiger statue. You're a Qing Dynasty eunuch. Yes, really. No, there's no turning back. And before you wonder, no, you probably wouldn't last a day in this life. Between the powdered wigs of foreign ambassadors and the imperial kitchen's obsession with pigeon feet, there's little room for personal freedom or extra snacks. So before you get too comfy, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, only if you genuinely enjoy what I'm doing here. And please, let me know where and what time you're listening from. I'd love to know if you're drifting off from Saigon or snuggled up somewhere in snowy Alberta. Now turn off the lights, start up a gentle fan for white noise, and let's begin tonight's journey. You're hunched over slightly, habit more than necessity, as you finish inventorying a tray of gold-trimmed teacups. Your hands are clean, your sleeves are tucked neatly, and you've already bowed no fewer than 17 times today. There's a dull ache in your knees, but compared to the palace intrigue and nighttime rat patrol, this part of your shift is positively luxurious. In your tiny dormitory, a room the size of a large broom closet, you keep everything folded and dusted like your life depends on it. Because it kind of does. A crooked scroll could mean a deduction in rice rations. A wrinkled robe, public scolding. And you've had enough of those, thank you very much. As you light a small oil lamp with your dragon-carved tinderbox, the shadows dance along the paper walls. The quiet is comforting. Outside, snow crunches beneath the feet of the night guards. Inside, you go through your bedtime routine with the precision of a surgeon and the anxiety of a man who's misplaced the emperor's toothbrush. You wash your face with water that's been sitting in a ceramic bowl all day. It's cold, shockingly cold, but you don't flinch. You just blink slowly, pat yourself dry with a linen cloth embroidered with a single character. Jing, clean. Historical fact: Qing Dynasty eunuchs were often recruited from impoverished families and underwent strict training not just in etiquette, but in how to maintain near-invisible presence, perfect silence, flawless manners, and loyalty bordering on the absurd. As you scrub behind your ears, another daily inspection point, your mind drifts to the peculiar gossip from the palace kitchens. They say the Empress Dowager demanded all her dumplings be folded in the shape of chrysanthemums. You once saw a cook break down crying after a cabbage leaf tore mid-fold. Strange detail. One court official supposedly believed that sneezing near the emperor was bad luck, so eunuchs carried bits of powdered cinnamon in their sleeves to suppress the urge. You've done it. It burns. You live. You line up your slippers, brush imaginary lint off your robe, unroll your straw mat and lie flat on your back, eyes trained on the ceiling. You can't sleep sideways. Your hair must not flatten oddly. That's grounds for morning reprimand. You blink at the ceiling. Blink. Blink again. From the corridor, you hear someone snore. It's Shu, the senior eunuch. He snores like a war drum. Nobody says a word. He outranks everyone except the stars in the sky. You think about the new Western clock recently gifted to the Emperor. It ticks all night, loudly, and it's been placed in the hall right outside your dorm. You've been fantasizing about smashing it with a porcelain chicken. Academic debate. Some historians still argue whether eunuchs in the Qing court had real power or were merely ceremonial pawns. Records suggest some wielded enormous influence, managing imperial documents, controlling access to the throne. Others suggest their influence was largely inflated by later scandalous novels. Your eyes close, then open again as the wind rattles the shutters. You wonder briefly what the stars look like outside Beijing. If there's a place, with less gold leaf and more open sky. But just as quickly, the thought evaporates. You roll gently to your side, not enough to flatten your hair, and whisper the evening mantra. Then silence, except, of course, for the ticking of that infernal Western clock. You wake up before the rooster. Not because you want to, of course, but because someone in the corridor knocks twice, softly, rhythmically, the palace version of a wake-up call. It's still dark outside. The lanterns haven't been relit. The air bites at your face like tiny invisible insects, and the floor is exactly as warm as a frozen turtle shell. You sit up slowly, muscles sore from sleeping on a mat thinner than a good dumpling wrapper. You fold your blanket with military precision. Your toes don't really work at this hour, but they know the path to your wash basin by heart. It's time to prepare the morning incense. The imperial palace runs on fragrance and formality. Your job today is to help refill the scent trays in the Eastern Harmony Pavilion, one of those serene names that makes it sound like nothing ever happens there. Lies. Everything happens there. Whispers, schemes. That time someone cried into the soup. You reach into your pouch and pull out 3 sticks of sandalwood incense. You place them on a jade tray so delicately you could be handling duck embryos. One wrong crack, and the master of ceremonies will launch into a 30-minute tirade about the moral decay of crooked incense. You mutter, "May the sticks be straight and the soup be bland," your version of a morning prayer. Historical fact. Incense played a vital role in court routines, not just for aroma, but also for timekeeping. A full stick of palace-grade incense burned for approximately 20 to 25 minutes and was used to mark meditation sessions, court proceedings, and yes, even naps. You make your way to the Eastern Pavilion through a side corridor draped with faded plum blossom curtains. You're not supposed to look up at any member of the royal family. If you do, it's considered disrespect. So naturally, you spend most of your life admiring the floor. Shu, the senior eunuch, is already there. He nods slightly without turning. That's his way of saying, "You're not late. Don't ruin it." You place the incense in the holders and light them, and the smoke rises like ghostly tendrils. It smells expensive and divine, like something you could never afford if you lived 100 lives. As you bow and retreat, you accidentally bump into a pillar. The jade bracelet on your wrist jingles softly. Shu doesn't say anything, but you feel his disapproval from 10 feet away. It's like being judged by a cloud. On your way back, you pass by the carp pond. The fish are still, too cold to care. One of them, your favorite, a plump golden one you secretly named General Wobble, bobs gently as if it's meditating. You whisper, "Still alive, buddy?" But of course, he says nothing. Strange detail. There were actual palace regulations on how to speak to animals. Seriously, one eunuch was once punished for referring to the emperor's prized dog as that fluffy gremlin. You've never forgotten that lesson. You now call all animals honorable beast. You return to your room for your second cleansing. Yes, second. The first was personal. This one is symbolic. A rinse to purify your hands before touching the inner courtyard gates. You dip your fingers into the porcelain bowl again. Still cold, still no heat anywhere in the palace. Your breath fogs as you whisper the 5 virtues of service under your breath. Clean, silent, loyal, graceful, invisible. You get the order wrong. You curse internally. Academic debate. Scholars still question the actual level of education provided to Qing eunuchs. Some say they were barely literate and served as glorified janitors. Others argue that certain high-ranking eunuchs were trained in Confucian texts and calligraphy and acted as advisors behind the curtain. Your job now? Dusting scrolls in the library of quiet reflection. It's as fun as it sounds. You carry a feather brush and wear a silk mask, partly for dust, mostly to prevent your breath from accidentally aging the scrolls by 0.003%. The librarian is a man so thin he looks like a ghost accountant. He watches you like you might sneeze wrong and rewrite history by accident. You handle each scroll like it's a newborn emperor. One slip, one tear, and you'll spend the next week scrubbing porcelain dragon feet as penance. You find one scroll that's oddly weighted. Curious, you tilt it. A small sachet of dried lotus seeds falls out. Secret snack stash or subtle sabotage? You tuck it back in place. You saw nothing, heard nothing, you are nothing. And then you sneeze. It's not loud, but it echoes loudly. The librarian gasps like he's seen a crime. You bow again, apologize. He huffs and storms out to write you up in the daily conduct scroll, which is read aloud during the weekly assembly. You consider changing your name or your face. Maybe General Wobble will let you live in the pond. Back in your dormitory, you're trying not to panic. You've committed a sneeze crime, and though technically it's not punishable by death, humiliation is practically a given. Last week, a junior eunuch tripped while serving tea and had to write a poem of apology in his own blood. Okay, it was just red ink, but still emotionally scarring. You light a single candle and sit on your heels, posture perfect. You decide to practice your apology smile. It's the one where your lips curve gently, eyes show contrition, and your whole being whispers, "I am not a threat to the state." But before the smile reaches symmetry, the bell tolls. 2 soft clangs, 1 pause, 3 more. That's the signal. You've been summoned to the inner court. You groan softly and stand. The inner court is where serious things happen. Documents get signed, royal eyebrows get plucked, mistakes get remembered forever. You shuffle quickly, silently. Every step is measured, each corner turned like you're threading a needle. You see the golden phoenix motif above the archway. Its wings spread like it's ready to judge your soul. Inside, it smells like orchid oil and old paper. 2 senior eunuchs sit at a red lacquer table. Shu is there too. He's sipping something suspiciously plum-colored and looking, as always, like he owns at least 3 secrets about your childhood. You sneezed, says the thinner one. You bow. Yes, honorable supervisor. It echoed, says the wider one, fanning himself with a silk fan that has no business existing in winter. You bow again. Yes, honorable supervisor. Shu says nothing, just sips. Then the thin one smiles. We needed someone to inventory the imperial footwear collection. You blink. The emperor has 412 pairs. The wide one adds. Each one needs to be inspected, brushed, and counted nightly. He's developing preferences. You realize this is your punishment. Historical fact: the Qianlong Emperor was known for his attention to detail in dress and accessories, including embroidered slippers. Some had soles made of layered silk, others of leather dyed with tea leaves. You nod. It would be my highest honor. They seem disappointed you didn't faint. They dismiss you with a wave, and you're handed a thick scroll and a tiny brush, one for cleaning embroidery threads. You carry them back like sacred relics. On your way, you pass by the music practice hall. Someone's playing a mournful tune on a 2-stringed erhu. It sounds like a farewell to your spinal health. The footwear chamber is colder than usual, probably because no one likes being here. Shoes of every imaginable fabric line the walls, ranked by color, season, occasion, and degree of imperial whimsy. That's not an official category, but it might as well be. You kneel before the first shelf and begin. Brush, count, log, repeat. A white slipper with blue lotus embroidery catches your eye. You gently tap out the dust from the seams. It's surprisingly heavy. You flip it. There's a note inside. You squint. The handwriting is elegant but shaky. It reads, "Meet me at the fish pond at the second bell." Why? Your heart stops. Who is why? Why the fish pond? Why you? You look around. No one's watching. You brush the shoe again, casually, like you didn't just uncover a potential love note, conspiracy, or poorly timed poetry club invitation. Strange detail. Romantic entanglements among eunuchs were rare but not unheard of. While technically discouraged, companionship formed through shared routine and quiet rebellion was historically a survival strategy. You finish brushing all 412 pairs. Your knees hate you. Your back has filed a formal complaint with your future self, but you make it back to your dorm just in time for the second bell. You grab your outer robe and sneak toward the fish pond, heart fluttering like a forbidden fan dance. It's quiet. The moon is high, casting silver light across the water. General Wobble does a lazy spin near the reeds. And then footsteps, software measured. You freeze. A figure steps into view. Tall, slender, wearing a robe you've seen before, linen with a jade clasp shaped like a fox. That's Yu Huan, the calligraphy eunuch. He nods once. You found the note. You nod back. I did. Silence stretches. Then he says, do you want to learn to write poems that don't rhyme? You blink. That's what this is about? He nods again. The library is full of scrolls no one reads. I thought maybe we could read them together. Your shoulders drop. The tension melts a little. This is not espionage, not seduction, just boredom, loneliness, and poetry. Academic debate. There is ongoing scholarly discussion about how eunuchs maintained their mental health. Some historians believe clandestine clubs and quiet forms of intellectual companionship played a crucial role in preserving a sense of identity. You smile. Only if I don't have to write an apology poem first. Yu Huan laughs softly. Deal. The moon glows. The fish glide. And for the first time in a while, you feel human. The next morning, you wake up to the sound of clattering bowls. It's rice day. The delivery eunuchs are unloading bags from the storage courtyard, grunting like oxen in silk. You rub your eyes, already calculating how many grains of rice you're allowed this week based on your behavior score, facial expression calibration, and general aura of subservient optimism. You slide open the door and step into the corridor. The sun filters through the lattice windows in narrow beams, dust dancing like lazy ghosts. You feel different today, not freer, but perhaps less alone. At the breakfast station, you accept your scoop of congee with a respectful bow. It's lukewarm and flavorless, exactly as expected. You sit cross-legged on the low bench, trying to avoid the gaze of the kitchen inspector, who looks like he bites dumplings for sport. Shu passes behind you and murmurs, you missed a stitch on slipper 308. You choke on your congee. It was only visible under candlelight, he adds, tone neutral, but laced with that special brand of senior disapproval. Do better? You nod like your life depends on it, because it kind of does. After breakfast, you return to the library of quiet reflection. The librarian hands you a new task without speaking, collating scrolls on dream interpretation. You blink. Isn't that a scholar's job? He raises an eyebrow, then shockingly winks. You realize something. Someone's pulling strings. Maybe Shu, maybe Yu Huan, maybe General Wobble has more influence than he lets on. Historical fact. Some eunuchs were quietly encouraged to expand their knowledge base, especially in medicine, astronomy, and symbolic interpretation, to assist in imperial rituals and decision-making. You sit cross-legged and unroll the first scroll on the meaning of tigers who wear boots. An excellent start. Hours pass like petals in wind. You copy symbols. You imagine the lives of the men who once penned them, men with names long forgotten, whose only legacy is obscure commentary on dreams involving frogs and bamboo. Strange detail. A recorded superstition in the late Qing court claimed that dreaming of a goat dancing implied an Indian letter from the south. No one knows why. You write it down anyway. As the sun dips behind the outer walls, The librarian brings you tea. He's never done that before. It's warm, faintly herbal, and somehow reassuring. You sip and smile. He doesn't smile back, but he also doesn't frown. In palace terms, that's practically a hug. Academic debate. Was the library a place of punishment or reward? Some argue it was a cushy exile. Others believe it offered sanctuary to those who sought a quiet rebellion, an escape from court drama through ink and scrolls. You pack your scrolls carefully, brush the last speck of dust off the jade paperweight, and bow deeply before leaving. The night air is crisp. Your footsteps are lighter. Back at your dorm, a single red paper crane sits on your mat. No name, no message, but you know, it's an invitation. Another meeting, another poem, or just a quiet reminder. You're seen. You smile, a real one this time. You climb into bed, lying flat, arms folded like a monk. You close your eyes, and for the first time in days, you don't think about slippers, scrolls, or sneezing. Just that little red crane. And maybe, just maybe, General Wobble doing backflips in his sleep. The next few days settle into a rhythm. You perform your duties with the measured grace of a man who's survived both a scroll sneeze and Slipper 308. Your posture improves. Your breathing slows. You've mastered the art of looking serene while mentally composing sarcastic haikus about palace hierarchy. But tonight, something changes. You've just finished evening incense duty, rosewood this time with a hint of dried pear, and you're returning to your dormitory when a junior runner, out of breath and with panic in his eyes, skids to a halt beside you. You've been summoned. Immediately. Imperial Wardrobe Hall. You blink. I didn't steal any socks. He doesn't laugh, just bows, shakes, and sprints off again, like a very nervous rabbit who knows too much. You take a steadying breath, then 3 more. The Imperial Wardrobe Hall is a place of exquisite tension. Bolts of brocade line the walls like priceless scrolls. Robes for emperors, concubines, ministers, even royal falcons are embroidered under the harsh eyes of seamstresses who have not smiled since the Kangxi reign. As you step through the wooden lattice doors, a heavy silence greets you. Shu is there, of course. Behind him stands an ancient woman dressed in all black, holding a pincushion the size of a melon. Her name is Madame Shu. She's the palace tailor general, feared even by ghosts. You've been chosen, Shu says, gesturing toward a pale blue silk robe laid out on a golden table. To wear this? You ask, hopefully. To catalog every thread of it, he replies. You deflate visibly. Historical fact. The Qing court maintained exhaustive records of each garment in the imperial wardrobe, listing materials, dyes, embroidery patterns, and the number of stitches. Some entries were as long as poems. You're handed a brush, ink, and a silk-bound ledger. The robe gleams like frozen water, with threadwork depicting cranes mid-flight. You count stitches. You name shades of blue you didn't know existed. You feel your soul exiting through your left eyebrow. Hours pass. At some point, Madame Shu nods approvingly. It's like being knighted by an ice sculpture. You feel honored and a little frostbitten. As you finish the last page, Shu leans in and whispers, The Emperor has asked for tonight's bedtime reading. You look at him. Why me? He shrugs. He says your voice is less annoying than most. Praise, sort of. Strange detail. The Qianlong Emperor often requested bedtime readings, and not just poetry and classics, but detailed reports on tax collection, court gossip, and once a catalog of all known types of melons. He reportedly fell asleep halfway through Melon Volume 3. That night, you stand outside the Emperor's chamber, heart pounding. The head steward nods, opens the door, and you step inside. It's dim. Scented candles flicker against carved screens. The Emperor lies reclined on a bed draped in gold-threaded curtains. He doesn't look up. You begin to read. You choose something safe. Excerpts from the Book of Rites. Your voice is steady, gentle, with a slow lullaby of bureaucratic order. Midway through the section on ritual umbrella angles, he sighs. Not that one, he says. Something about dreams, or fish, or both. Your brain scrambles. Then it lands. The scrolls you worked on in the library. Dream interpretations. You flip to a mental page. You begin. To dream of fish swimming upward implies ambition. To dream of fish leaping from a bowl signals instability in relationships. To dream of carp that write poetry suggests one should avoid strong wine. The Emperor chuckles. Softly. You're not sure if it's at the carp or the wine. He waves a hand. That will do. You may go. You bow deeply. Back out slowly. The doors close behind you. Shu appears like a ghost. He liked it? You whisper. He liked the fish or the voice? Shu shrugs. He hasn't summoned me for bedtime reading in years. You're too tired to process this. You return to your dorm, collapse on your mat, and dream of tiny embroidered carp swimming in soup bowls filled with ink. Academic debate. Some researchers argue that eunuchs held informal power through these personal services, bedtime readings, dietary supervision, or wardrobe assistance, placing them closer to the center of imperial emotion than officials ever reached. You wake before sunrise again. But this time, there's something waiting by your door. A new paper crane. This one's blue. Inside it reads, "Tomorrow during scroll duty, look behind the red shelf." You spend the morning trying not to look suspicious, which in the Forbidden City is nearly impossible. Looking too focused makes people think you're hiding something. Looking too relaxed suggests you've gone mad. Looking anywhere but your feet is practically a security breach. So naturally, you choose to look constipated. Emotionally, that is. It's your safest face. By the time you arrive at the Library of Quiet Reflection, you're already sweating through your winter layers. The scroll room is dim as ever, smelling of cedar and slow brewing bureaucracy. You bow to the librarian, who nods just once as if to say, "Don't sneeze again." You resume your position among the shelves, feather brush in hand, and begin the morning's sacred task, dusting historical documents written by men who clearly never expected their footnotes to be exfoliated by eunuchs. You bide your time, wait for the room to clear, wait for the right moment, and then, when all you can hear is the faint scuff of cloth and the crackle of a candle, you move. You slide behind the red lacquered shelf, careful not to disturb the delicate balance of scrolls. Your fingers trace the wood until they find something odd, a small notch disguised as decoration. You press, click. The panel shifts inward. You hold your breath. Behind it, there's a narrow compartment containing another scroll, tied with a black silk ribbon and sealed with wax in the shape of a plum blossom. You glance around, still alone. You unroll it carefully. The script is neat, elegant, unmistakably familiar. In dreams, the fish speak truths we fear to hear. In silence, there is knowledge. If you wish to read what's forbidden, bring tea to the South Pavilion. Tonight, after second bell, come alone. Why? You stare at the scroll, half poem, half treasure map, and 100% suspiciously poetic invitation that might get you reassigned to duck plucking duty. But your heart beats faster, not with fear. Well, that's not just fear, but with curiosity. The dangerous kind. You hide the scroll in your robe and return to your post. A historian once wrote that eunuchs were ghosts among the living. You wonder what kind of ghost sneaks around collecting secret literature. That evening, after incense and supper, a bowl of rice, and one very judgmental pickle, you gather your courage. In your tea set, the good one, white jade with a crack in the lid that looks like a falling star. You walk quickly but quietly through the shadowy courtyards until you reach the South Pavilion, a mostly unused space now, where musicians once rehearsed before royal banquets. The walls are faded. The air smells faintly of plum ink and damp stone. Yu Huan is already there, seated cross-legged on a cushion, surrounded by 3 lanterns and a pile of forbidden scrolls stacked like the bones of old truths. He looks up and smiles. You came. You sit, pour tea. No words at first, just steam, just silence. Then, why me, you ask? He shrugs. You read well, you listen better, and no one watches you. Well, that's both comforting and devastating. He picks up a scroll, unrolls it. This one, he says, was banned 20 years ago. It questions whether the Dragon Throne has divine origin or just excellent marketing. You blink. That's blasphemous. It's also beautifully written. He begins to read, slowly, like a monk decoding a love letter. You sip your tea, heart thudding. Historical fact. Though tightly censored, some Qing court scholars recorded dissenting opinions that week in private journals or cloaked their ideas in poetic allegory. A few of these works were hidden in walls, sewn into garments, or buried in imperial gardens. You stay until the candles burn low. You listen to words you're not supposed to hear, from scrolls you're not supposed to touch, with someone you're not supposed to meet. It's the most alive you've felt in years. Strange detail, in rare cases, eunuchs who demonstrated literary talent were tasked with ghostwriting edicts, letters, or even autobiographies for imperial figures too busy or too lazy to write their own. Before leaving, Yu Huan gives you a folded scrap of paper. Your mind deserves to stretch, even if your body may not. You part ways in the dark. Back in your dorm, you hide the note beneath your mat and stare at the ceiling. Somewhere, a bird calls. Somewhere, Shu is probably muttering about dust ratios. You close your eyes and dream of ink bleeding through silk. The next day, the palace feels different. Not outwardly, everything still smells faintly of boiled turnips and ceremonial formality, but you are different. You move with a subtle awareness, like a character in a story no one else knows they're in. You begin to notice things. A servant changing the direction of a floor tile slightly off pattern. A wall tapestry with one thread snipped. You sipping tea left-handed today. He's right-handed. The city within the city speaks in a language of shadows and small betrayals. You spend your morning translating idioms from Manchu into Mandarin for an official manual on robe folding. It's as exciting as it sounds. But beneath your focused expression, your mind is still in the South Pavilion. You've started thinking in metaphors. It's Yu Huan's fault. At lunch, you chew mechanically through pickled bamboo and rice with the consistency of mood. Shu sits beside you and without looking says, "You're distracted." You freeze mid-chew. He sips. You're still doing your duties well, but your soul is somewhere else. You clear your throat, just tired. Shu raises one eyebrow. Tired men sleep. You stare at walls. You say nothing. He leans closer. Be careful. The palace hears things before ears do. Then he stands and leaves. Historical fact. In the late Qing dynasty, espionage within the Forbidden City wasn't uncommon. Eunuchs, concubines, ministers, all vied for influence. Some served multiple masters. Whispers traveled faster than couriers. That evening, Yu Huan doesn't appear. The South Pavilion is dark. The air smells of absence. You return to your dorm, uneasy. The next day, still no sign. On the third day, during a scroll dusting shift, you notice something. A red ink dot on the corner of a shelf. New, deliberate. You wait until the librarian nods off, his head bobbing like a sleepy gourd, and you slide behind the shelf. This time, the compartment holds not a scroll, but a folded robe. Inside the robe, another note. Change is coming. Some truths need silence, but others need scribes. Beneath the note, a small woodblock seal, carved with a phoenix, a seal of the Empress. You swallow hard. This is not poetry. This is treason, or at least revolution. You hide the seal in your sash and return to your desk, hands steady only by sheer force of panic. That night, you dream of phoenixes soaring through clouds shaped like scrolls. Strange detail. There are unconfirmed rumors that certain eunuchs served as secret messengers for powerful concubines or royal factions. Their ability to move unnoticed made them ideal for quiet rebellion. The next few days, everything blurs. You are summoned twice to read to the emperor. He prefers stories of fox spirits now. You organize ceremonial robes for an ambassador from Tibet who insists on wearing yak wool socks with silk slippers. You carry a message to the astronomical bureau, where a man with eyebrows like twin scrolls of sadness asks you if the stars seem restless lately. And always, in the background, the seal, tucked close to your body, warming like a coal of truth. Academic debate. Some scholars argue the late Qing court teetered not because of foreign threats, but from the weight of its own secrets. Too many people knowing too many things and saying too little for too long. On the seventh night, a whisper slips beneath your door. The empress moves. The crane bows before the plum blossom. Come to the hall of eternal light. Midnight. You crush the paper in your hand and sit still for a long time. Midnight. The hall of eternal light is one of the oldest parts of the palace, closed for renovations, or so they say. You slip through the moonlight like a rumor, past guards who look the other way, past Shu, who gives you a nod that might mean go, or might mean you're insane. Inside, the hall smells of old incense, burnt jade, and lacquer dreams. Yu Huan is there, so is Madame Shu, and two other eunuchs you only know by rumor, one with a limp, the other with a voice like crushed silk. A woman steps forward from the shadows. You've never seen her face, only her portrait. The Empress. She looks directly at you. Do you believe, she says, that truth belongs only to those with titles? You don't answer right away. You glance at the phoenix seal in your hand, then meet her gaze. No, you say, and the hall goes quiet. The silence inside the hall of eternal light is thick, less like air, more like syrup. You stand motionless, one hand still clasping the phoenix seal, the other trembling slightly under your robe sleeve. The Empress studies you, not like a person, but like a ledger, weighing credits and deficits in character and potential treason. Her voice, when she finally speaks again, is soft but edged like paper newly cut. We do not need heroes, she says. We need witnesses. You bow so deeply your forehead grazes the floor. Yu Huan approaches and with a rare confidence says, he's read the lost scrolls. He understands coded ink. He remembers entire paragraphs by sound alone. Madame Shu adds, without looking at you, he irons silk like he's whispering to spirits. That's enough discipline for any rebellion. You're not sure if this is praise or just an extremely niche compliment. The Empress holds out her hand. In it, a small slip of parchment. You step forward, take it with both hands. It contains three things: a date, the next full moon, a location, the hall of spreading fragrance, a phrase, the ink never dries. You commit them to memory, burn the parchment over the oil lamp. You don't ask questions. That, apparently, is part of the training. Historical fact: the Empress Dowager and her court often communicated via poetic phrases and metaphor, particularly during the later Qing years, when internal court factions became more secretive and less traceable. That week, nothing outwardly changes. You polish dragon carvings with extra care. You assist a Manchu noblewoman's servant in locating a misplaced headdress feather. You read the classic of tea to the emperor until he falls asleep, mumbling about fermented leaves. But inside, you're coiled wire. On the night of the full moon, the palace is draped in a quiet too perfect to be natural. You walk softly past the carp pond. General Wobble seems unusually still. Perhaps he too knows something's shifting. At the hall of spreading fragrance, the scent hits you before the moonlight does. Osmanthus, faint but sharp, like memory itself. You step inside. Yu Huan, Madame Shu, and two more figures wait in the shadows. The Empress arrives last. No crown, no veil, just a plain robe with embroidery so subtle it glimmers only when she breathes. She gestures to the center, a low table with a single scroll. You approach, unroll it. Your breath catches. It's a declaration, written in imperial calligraphy, but not yet signed. At the top, mandate for reform. It lists proposals that, if announced, would shift the empire's weight, restructuring court appointments, opening access to court records, reducing eunuch labor quotas, creating a public archive of royal edicts. You look up. The Empress says, "It will be released when the stars align." Your task is to memorize it. Your lips part, but she silences you with a look. No ink, no copies, no trail, only memory. You nod and begin, line by line, stroke by stroke. Hours pass. You speak each paragraph aloud in whispers, committing it not just to thought, but to breath, to muscle, to bone. Strange detail. Some elite eunuchs were trained in oral recitation to serve as living vaults, retaining decrees and contracts that could never be written down. They were both record and recorder, a dangerous and sacred responsibility. By dawn, you've recited the entire scroll 3 times, without error. The Empress places a single finger to her lips, and then it vanishes, folded, burned, gone. Only you remain, a servant of silence, now burdened with the voice of change. Academic debate whether there ever existed a living document eunuch in Qing court has never been proven, but records hint at missing proclamations, vanished reforms, and a single footnote about a servant who carried thunder beneath his tongue. You return to your dorm, lay flat, stare at the ceiling. The paint is peeling. A spider crawls across the beam. Someone is snoring in the corridor. You close your eyes and feel the weight of words never written, alive, still, inside you. The days that follow feel like borrowed time. You perform your duties like clockwork, lighting incense, recording robe inspections, reciting bedtime stories for an emperor who now requests tales of ancient turtles and suspiciously enlightened frogs. But under it all, your breath carries words the world is not ready for. You've become a scroll with legs, a walking whisper, a time bomb made of poetry and policy. Yu Huan no longer leaves messages. Shu says little, but nods more often. Even General Wobble seems more reserved. Then one evening, just as you're refilling the Emperor's winter scent burners with powdered lotus and powdered plum, a courier appears. He's shaking. His mouth opens twice before he can form a sentence. The Empress, she's been moved. You blink. Moved? He swallows. To the Western Serenity Chamber, guarded, so visitors forbidden. Your hands pause mid-sprinkle. That's the imperial version of house arrest. You finish the burner anyway, just a touch more plum, just in case. Historical fact: political figures in the Qing court were sometimes quietly relocated rather than openly exiled, especially if public removal would disrupt court harmony or expose underlying instability. These quiet purges often left no formal trace. You find Yu Huan at the fish pond that night. He's pacing, sleeves fluttering like anxious birds. She moved too soon, he mutters, or someone betrayed her timing. You sit beside him, say nothing. The pond is eerily still. Even the koi seems stunned. She gave you the scroll, didn't she? He asks, low. You nod. It's here. You tap your chest. All of it? He turns to you, expression equal parts reverence and sorrow. Then it's already started. He hands you a folded piece of linen. Inside, a brush, a thin piece of rice paper, and a dry inkstone. I know you weren't supposed to copy it, but write it once, just once, in case you... He doesn't finish the sentence. You don't need him to. That night, by the faintest light, you press ink to paper. Your strokes are deliberate, controlled. Every curve of the character carries the tension of 1,000 unspoken hopes. And when it's finished, you don't hide it. You fold it, tuck it into the lining of the emperor's winter robe. Because maybe, just maybe, he'll feel its weight. You sleep lightly that night and dream not of rebellion, but of a bird made of paper and fire. Strange detail. In some corners of the Qing court, eunuchs were said to possess sleeve magics, hiding objects, letters, even coated fans within their wide robe sleeves. Whether this was sleight of hand or just well-folded silk, no one can say. The next morning, the emperor cancels his reading. No reason given. Later, you're summoned to the Hall of Jade Restraint, a room used for interviews or investigations. You bow deeply as 3 ministers enter, led by a man you only know as Lord Wren, famed for his exquisite robes and absence of empathy. He looks at you like you're a puzzle with missing corners. You've been near the Empress, he says. You say nothing. You've handled scrolls, memorized things, whispered at fish ponds. Still nothing. He steps closer. We could send you to the salt mines for this. You bow lower. I understand. He watches you, then smiles. We won't. You glance up. He turns to the others. He's not dangerous. He's a parrot. If the Empress is clipped, he's just a cage without a song. He waves. You are dismissed. You walk out slowly, heart pounding. You are still a ghost, but now they see your shadow. Academic debate. Some eunuchs were kept around not out of trust, but because they were considered harmless archives. It's unclear whether this was a strategic underestimation or the mistake that eventually toppled a few pillars of empire. That night, you receive no messages, but you find your robe has been washed, pressed, and folded exactly how the Empress once taught you. Cuffs turned inward, collar facing the moon, a message in gesture. She is still alive and watching. A storm rolls in the next day, not the dramatic kind, with thunder and shouted confessions. No, this one arrives in silence, gray skies, an atmosphere that feels like paper left out in the rain. Everything softens, guards speak in half tones, servants move like dancers in mourning, and in the center of it all, the Emperor remains asleep. 3 days in a row now. You still go to read at the appointed hour. You still bow, still whisper through tales of dreaming turtles and moonlit sheep. But the head steward just shakes his head. His Majesty is not receiving. Not even bedtime stories? Something is wrong. Back in the incense chamber, you carefully fold the new lotus amber mixture into sachets. Madame Cho passes by, but says nothing, just drops a scrap of silk onto your work table, embroidered in plum thread, a fish and a lock, a symbol, not a message. But you understand. They've sealed the Empress's chambers, figuratively, maybe literally. The lock is tight. Historical fact. While public edicts rarely recorded internal palace events, personal seals and embroidered iconography often carried coded warnings. Among eunuchs and concubines, these small images could hold more weight than words. You wander the palace that evening, checking your reflection in every polished bronze mirror, every glazed teapot. You're starting to look older. Not in the face, but in the eyes, like you've seen too many truths and not enough freedom. At the scroll library, the red shelf is gone, replaced by a potted chrysanthemum. You count its petals anyway in case it's a code. Nothing. The rebellion, if that's what it was, is frozen or hiding. The next day, Shu assigns you to laundry rotation. Punishment, distraction, protection, you don't know. What you do know is that imperial underwear smells surprisingly of sandalwood. You fold socks in silence until a voice whispers. She was seen in the winter garden yesterday, alone, no guards. You don't turn, just nod. Information spreads differently now. No more paper cranes, just murmurs, hums, the occasional shift in how soup is ladled. That night, Yu Huan visits. He says nothing at first, just sits on the stone bench beside you and watches the moonlight pool in the koi pond. She's preparing to abdicate influence, he finally says. You look at him, startled. You mean she's giving up? He shakes his head. She's moving sideways, like a chess piece. The scroll was never meant for today. It was always meant for later. You exhale. You didn't realize you were holding your breath for days. Strange detail. It was rumored that a few key reforms in the Qing court began not with bold decrees, but with gentle withdrawals, reassignments, rewordings, quiet exits that left just enough space for the next whisper to grow into a conversation. Until then, Yu Huan adds, you're to keep the words safe. Speak them to no one, not even me. You nod. He hesitates, then places something in your hand. It's a jade button. You look up. It was hers, he says, for when the silence ends. The button is warm from his palm. You don't sleep that night. You lie awake, tracing the grooves of the carving, an orchid motif, and thinking about all the things you've carried: slippers, scrolls, secrets, and now, legacy. Academic debate. Some historians claim the eunuchs of the late Qing became mere functionaries. Others argue they served as vessels, human bridges between past and future, silence and speech, neither fully servant nor fully free. At dawn, you perform your duties with fresh precision. You prepare the emperor's wardrobe, even though he still doesn't wake. You light the incense. You clean the library dust that no one else sees. And beneath your robe, the jade button presses gently against your ribs. A reminder, a key. A month passes. Winter deepens. Snow piles in soft drifts against the palace walls, muting every footstep, every whispered word. The Forbidden City becomes a world of hush and hush alone. The koi pond freezes at the edges. General Wobble now resembles a drifting, judgmental cloud beneath the ice. And still, you wait. The Emperor remains largely asleep or withdrawn. You continue to attend his bedchamber each evening, reciting to a man who no longer listens. The tales now blur together: foxes who forget their names, rabbits who miss the moon, emperors who dream they're butterflies and wake up unsure. You recite them anyway, because that's what you do, because perhaps you're still hoping he hears something, anything, a syllable from the mandate, a curl of its logic, a whiff of reform beneath the incense. But he only sighs, sometimes snores, never speaks. One evening, a letter arrives, delivered not by courier, but tucked inside your folded laundry between two nearly identical socks. It reads, "The seal is broken. The words are safe. You may release the memory, not in thunder, in rain." You read it twice, then burn it in your oil lamp. That night, the clouds open, not dramatically, just enough to release a patient, persistent rain, the kind that wakes trees in spring, that nudges dust from statues, that remembers the names of things long buried. You stand at the threshold of the Emperor's chamber, heart steady. You bow, enter. No steward stops you. You approach his bedside. He is sleeping, barely. You kneel, slowly, and speak the words, not as protest, not as plea, but as promise, line by line, clause by clause. You recite the mandate of reform, its measured calls, its quiet courage, its vision of transparency and grace. The Emperor doesn't stir, but the candle beside him flutters once, twice. You finish. You do not bow this time. You simply place the jade button on the nightstand and leave. Historical fact. While there is no record of a specific mandate of reform, as described here, there were scattered edicts during the late Qing period that mirrored these ideals, often issued under vague names, sometimes unsigned, but reshaping bureaucratic flow in unexpected ways. The next week, there's a shift. A new memo circulates through the inner court, short, anonymous, unsigned. It removes double paperwork requirements from robe inventories. It allows lower-ranking attendants to attend open reading sessions in the library. It decommissions 3 absurd ceremonial steps that involved shouting at clouds during seasonal changes. The changes are small, but you see them, and Shu sees you seeing them. He only says, The soup tastes less like regret lately. Madame Cho starts humming when she sews. Yu Huan carves tiny birds into the edges of scroll weights. Even the librarian gives you a fresh brush, tied with golden thread. You're still a eunuch, still a shadow, but you are now a shadow with roots. Strange detail. In palace culture, reform rarely began with declarations. It often began with behavior. Tiny shifts in etiquette, language, gesture, the way a door was knocked or not. One morning, the Empress returns. No fanfare, no announcement, just appears in the garden, staring calmly at a frozen chrysanthemum, its petals curled like ink on old parchment. You bow. She does not speak. She does not need to. That evening, a final letter waits beneath your pillow. You are no longer the scroll. You are the ink. You lie down slowly, eyes open, ceiling cracked in familiar patterns, general wobble beneath his ice, and you, a scribe who never held a pen, but changed the narrative anyway. And now, let's leave the palace behind. Let the golden roofs and snowy courtyards drift away like mist on the morning wind. You're no longer standing on cold tile floors, bowing under candlelight, or carrying secrets folded in silk. You're somewhere softer now, warmer. A quiet room where the air hums gently, like lullabies spoken by old books. Your breath slows, in, outside, again. Imagine yourself resting on a mat of softest bamboo, under a sky painted in watercolor dusk. The scent of plum blossoms lingers faintly in the air, barely there, just enough to remind you of something kind and forgotten. A koi drifts through still water. The wind moves through distant pines. Somewhere, a paper crane flutters gently to the ground and waits. There is no duty now, no scroll to protect, no slippers to polish or incense to light. Only stillness, only you. The palace sleeps. The emperor sleeps. Even the memories, once sharp as cut silk, begin to soften at the edges. You let go of every bow, every whisper, every name not spoken aloud. Tonight, you are not a eunuch. You are not a servant. You are not a shadow. You are simply safe and free. Let your shoulders sink. Let your mind float. Let the hush of history become the hush of sleep. You did well. You were enough. You are at peace. Good night.